Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Santa Claus is coming to kill your entire family. Welcome back to yet another holiday-themed episode. Today I'm talking about Christmas horror movies. Now, I started compiling my list of Christmas horror movies, and to my utter dismay, I found that I've only seen 9 Christmas horror movies. What the hell is wrong with me? Are there just not that many out there, or am I just tripping? Probably a little bit of both. There are a bunch that I still want to see, I just didn't have the time this year to check them out. Some of those include Sint, which is Saint in German, I believe, which follows like a demonic Saint Nick. It's a German film, Dick Maas. Another one that I want to see is Rare Exports. Now, I have seen that movie, but it was like 15 years ago. I remember nothing about it. But I remember kind of enjoying it, but I don't remember it enough to talk about it. So today what I'm going to do is talk about 9 of the Christmas horror films that I have seen. The only 9. Now, I don't own all these films. I would like to, even though one of them I don't even think is on DVD, so I'd like to own the VHS of it at least. And also, I did rank these from 9 being the worst and 1 being the best, obviously. I figured might as well do a ranking of these since I can easily differentiate it. Down in the comments below, if you've seen more than 10, or if you've only seen a few, do a top 5, a top 10 Christmas horror movies. I'd love to read through them so that I could get some recommendations for myself. I need to brush up on this genre, apparently, so please educate me. Feel free to do that in the comments below. We'll get a discussion rolling as usual. So, my number 9 is a film called Elves. Now, I watched this movie last year, and I did talk about it in an early episode of What I've Watched, one of my earlier episodes, and it was really bad. I mean, it was almost there. It had the right ideas, and forgive me, it's been a while, and it was pretty forgettable, but I do remember a few things, like the main character who was played by... oh, man, the Grizzly guy. Grizzly Adams. No. What's his name? Big burly guy. I'm gonna put him here and put his name up here, because I forgot. Dan something. Haggerty. Something Haggerty. Dan Haggerty? Yeah, Dan Haggerty. Anyway, it follows him. And he's just so awful in the movie. He is just abysmal. He's like an alcoholic ex-cop that works as Santa, or in a mall where Santa is, something like that. He works in a mall, and there are these little elf creatures who are bringing upon the apocalypse or something. It sounds cool, but it wasn't really cool. The effects were uninspired, especially for the early 90s. It doesn't really have any great Christmas themes. It has a shootout, which is one of the most incompetent shootouts I've ever seen in a film ever. I could do better. I know I can do better. It's really bad. So yeah, Elves, just a forgettable little Christmas horror film that is pretty forgettable. My number 8 is a film I watched 2 years ago now with my brother and my sister. It was on Netflix. It was Christmas Eve or 2 days before Christmas, and we were like, all right, let's watch a Christmas horror movie. We picked a bad one. We picked A Christmas Horror Story. Now, this came out after the Krampus. When the Krampus came out, it sparked like a whole subgenre of these types of Christmas horror films with Krampus-like creatures. This one has an incredible cover with the Krampus facing off against Santa. And they've got whips and swords. It's amazing. It's like, please, I want to watch this movie. And that's what drew us in. We get 3 or 4 different stories. It's an anthology film. I don't remember any of the damn stories, except for one where a family had I don't remember. All I remember about it was there was this, the wraparound segment had like this worker at this mall where Santa was go crazy and start like killing all the elves because he thought they were demons, and like there were elves named Sparkles, and I'm probably getting my details all mixed up, but I don't give a shit because this movie was pretty shitty. A little bit better than Elves, but that's not saying much. So, A Christmas Horror Story. Alright, now we're getting into things that resemble films. This one... Silent Night, Deadly Night. This is a cult classic. A lot of people love this movie. I don't love this movie. I feel as if it's very disjointed. I never like the slashers that sort of take the route of, here's the killer, you know who he is, now watch him do his thing. Yeah, sure, it was one of the first films to... One of Christmas Evil came before this, which I haven't seen, where a guy's dressed up as Santa killing people. I believe Christmas Evil came out in 81 or 2. This came out in 84, I want to say. And yeah, it just feels like a few different movies sort of stitched together, especially the third act. I don't hate this movie. I don't. I like it. I think it's okay. I think it's average. You know, I am not too crazy about it. Maybe next time, maybe I was expecting too much. Maybe next time I go into it, I'll get a little bit more out of it. But the best part of the film is probably this guy. This character in and of himself, who has a traumatized youth and brings that traumatization into his teens and young adulthood. And you can just tell this dude's on edge like all the time, like he's on the verge of snapping, and he eventually does and starts killing people. But it's not that exciting. Yeah, that's all I really have to say about it. Silent Night, Deadly Night, not one of my favorites, but still a film that I don't hate, and I'm glad to have in the collection. Number 6 is loads of fun. Loads of fun is Jack Frost. I grew up watching this with my buddies from high school, around the time when this film came out, actually. We thought it was so ridiculous, obviously. A giant snowman killing people with icicles and carrots and fucking snowballs and shit. It's amazing. It knows exactly what it's setting out to do, and it nails it on the head. I mean, is it a great movie? Is it fucking Schindler's List? No, it's not. But it's Jack Frost, and it features a giant snowman killing people around Christmas time. I'm a simple man. You can't go wrong with a giant fucking snowman. I love Jack Frost. Next one up is a film that... It's not quite a Christmas horror film, even though it takes place during Christmas and follows a family of characters who are on their way to a Christmas party or a Christmas dinner, something like that. However, on their journey to get there, they find a back road, a dead end, or basically a road that just keeps looping over and over and over. And they don't know what the hell's going on. Ray Wise is in this, Lin Shaye, so a couple genre legends. Love both of them, and it's great to see them both interacting as husband and wife. They've got a kid or two, I can't quite remember. Again, it's been a while. But this is a great movie. It really is, despite it taking place during Christmas time. It's a great psychological horror thriller with a killer Twilight Zone sort of twist. Very Twilight Zone, actually, in terms of how it feels overall. So this is a little bit of a hidden gem, and it is a Christmas time horror movie, so check out Dead End. Next up, my number 4 is Black Christmas. How can you have a Christmas horror movie list and not talk about Black Christmas? I love this movie. This movie is fantastic. I know it's been remade twice now. I don't have too much interest in the remakes. One day I'll check them out, but the original Bob Clark film is where it's at. This was a big deal for a lot of reasons. This kickstarted the slasher idea in America. It really did. Bob Clark was watching, it seems like he was watching a lot of giallo around this time from Italy, and he sort of incorporates a lot of that into his film here. And it's predates Halloween, of course, as an American slasher, and it also is one of the first examples of a Christmas-themed horror film, or even a holiday-themed horror film. So Bob Clark, man, he doesn't get enough credit for what he brought to cinema. He was a very eclectic and diverse director, and Black Christmas is just quintessential Christmas horror. It really is. And it follows a creepy stalker guy who talks like a fucking creeper into the phone to these girls around Christmas time that are living in a sorority home, and he starts picking them off one by one. Black Christmas, gotta watch Black Christmas when it comes to Christmas time horror movies. It's one of the best. Bob Clark is a genius. Next up is a film that I watched a few weeks ago and absolutely loved it. I can't believe it took me this long to see it. I am ashamed. It is my number 3. It is Krampus. This is Michael Dougherty, who directed, most recently, Godzilla King of the Monsters, and before Krampus, he directed Trick or Treat, which is a quintessential Halloween movie. So this guy's just knocking it out of the park with these types of films, holiday horror films. Krampus blew me away, from its practical effects to the simple story it's trying to sell. trying to tell, to its political undertones. There were a lot of great things going for this film. The acting is superb. All of the characters are great. I had a fun time with all of them. I laughed, I cried, I cheered at the screen. Some of the practical monsters in this film are incredible. I don't want to give it away. Obviously, the Krampus monster, who has the horns and the hooves, he looks fantastic. Anytime he's on screen, it is scary. He is imposing. And I love the idea of this film. By the way, the end of this film totally rips from Jeepers Creepers. Totally rips from Jeepers Creepers. In its aesthetic, in its twist, in its style. It's got an old-timey music song playing, I should say, and it's pulling back, dollying back, showing the lair, I'll say, and it has a killer twist ending. I loved the ending to this film, and I love this movie. I love the idea of Christmas spirit being vacuumed out of certain families, and there being a repercussion for that, and it just has a lot of good things to say on the subject, and it actually has a great flashback scene that shows the grandmother who knows a little bit about what's going on. And I called it. I was like, she's going to tell a story. I know it. And she ended up telling the story. So Krampus is phenomenal. I love it. I ended up giving it a 4.5 out of 5. But the next day I dropped that down to a solid 4. It is staying at a solid 4. I loved it. Not many complaints. My number 2 is a film that floored me a couple years back when it came out, and that is Better Watch Out. I don't own this film on DVD or Blu-ray yet, but I really, really would like to. This one's directed by Chris Peckover, and it is a Christmas-themed horror comedy thriller, and it is drenched in a Christmas aesthetic. I mean, the lighting in this film is incredible and really emulates and simulates the glow of the Christmas lights and the Christmas time in the form of its cinematography. It does such a good job with it, making you feel warm and at home in terms of Christmas time. So the main story follows a young girl babysitter who is watching this young boy, like a 12-year-old boy or something. She's probably 16 or something like that, 17, 18, maybe younger. And the story follows her trying to protect this boy from a bunch of people that break into her home. Now, this film, I can't talk about it much because this film has so many twists and turns, and it'll always keep you guessing and it'll have you going like, what? And it does have moments that are like, what the fuck? How could that happen? But it's done so well and written so damn well that it just works. Your suspension of disbelief is in effect here. And it just does such a good job twisting and turning all over the place, and that's really the most I could talk about it. But I love this film. It is definitely one I would love to own and watch every single year. It is my number 2 favorite Christmas horror movie of all time. The performances are fantastic. The characters are engaging. The story is engaging and interesting. I love it. It's fantastic. Better Watch Out is my number 2. Last but not least, some would argue that this isn't a Christmas film, but it really is. It really is a Christmas horror fantasy film, and that's Gremlins. Now, Gremlins is a near-perfect movie I watch every single year. What can be said about Gremlins? You guys all know this film. A young boy gets a gift, and it's a mogwai. It's a little creature, not unlike a Furby. And, I'm dating myself here. And basically it comes with rules like don't feed it after midnight and don't get it wet or else something bad is going to happen. Of course, he breaks the rules, and the Gremlins, or the Mogwai, turn into our titular Gremlins, and they start wreaking havoc around Christmas time. There's a great sequence in a Christmas shop where they're riding trains and they're wearing Santa hats. It's ridiculous and amazing. This even has a scene that completely spoils the fact that Santa's not real for children that may be watching this. I always thought that was a little funny. I remember watching it with my little brother. That scene came up and I was like, oh shit. And I was like, and he was like, are you okay? And I was like, oh, I'm fine. You know, it was like one of those moments where I was trying to keep the magic alive for him. But Gremlins, I love Gremlins. I try to watch it every year. I've yet to watch it this year, but I will rectify that soon. Gremlins, directed by none other than Joe Dante. I just want to thank you guys for checking out my list of Christmas horror movies. I ranked all 9 that I've seen, the only 9 that I've seen. I'd love to know what your favorite Christmas horror movie is, so feel free to leave that down in the comments below, and we could get a little discussion rolling as usual. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up, and if you're new to the channel and want to see more videos like it, feel free to give the subscribe and the little bell for notifications. Anyway, guys, I will see you next time. Bored Cyborg out. What am I doing? What am I doing? Ho, ho, ho.